Hype Network presents.
On this episode of Season 4, let's talk.
In cosplay, yes, I am pretty competitive. Although it took me a few years to get here because of course I wanted to learn from the best of the best, which is I am in this group of girls who are very highly known in Baguio cosplay community, and they are the best of the best, like best in crafting, best in wig making, makeup, stuff like that. And they have taught me the rope arounds to doing stuff, and I have learned a lot from them. That's why I was able to get here with their help.
Before we get into this episode, make sure to share this with your family and friends. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Rajiv Show. Hey folks, welcome back to The Rajiv Show, and I'm your host Rajiv Doreswamy. And this show aims to help reach out to those who are currently struggling in life and to remind you that life is indeed beautiful when you're inspired to make it your own. Hey folks, welcome back to The Rajiv Show, and my guest today is a legend in her own field. How I know this person is through cosplay, and of course, that is an art in itself. And that's what we're going to talk about in this conversation. Folks, let me introduce to you my guest today, Chairein Cordoviz. Hey, Chairein, how you doing?
Hey Rajiv, thank you so much for inviting me on your show. It's good to be here.
And before we begin this conversation, could you give a little bit of could you give my listeners a little bit of background about you, aside from the things that I mentioned, of course?
Sure. So hi everybody. My name is Chairein Cordoviz. I mainly do events, event organizing, event making, and then I am a cosplayer. I also love to do arts and crafts, like mostly polymer clay molding and making. And then I also do archery and some other sports. Those are part of my hobbies.
Interesting. For those folks who are tuning in who don't really want to get into mess with Shireen, because yeah, she'll shoot you with an arrow, just so you guys know. So yeah, I gotta ask, if you and I were high school friends, who were you in high school? Were you the popular gal? Were you the book smart? Were you the guy, the girl at the back of the class, or you're always on top of the class and competitive in your own way?
Okay, well, when I was in high school, it was pretty weird. So you know me as a girly girl.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, I was pretty much a tomboy. I didn't do dresses. I didn't like dresses. And when I was in high school, I joined the what do you call this? Junior police or CAT.
Hmm.
So I was around confiscating people's what do you call this? Balisong in Tagalog. So
Yeah.
I'd confiscate their balisong, and I would own that because I had that privilege in high school, and I could go in and out of the campus whenever I wanted. Although even with this, I did get bullied a lot,
Oh.
but I was also a bit popular, so something like that.
Somewhere midway being bullied, and that's a different
Yeah.
thing. That's a different dynamic when it comes to personalities.
Yeah, it was really weird. I'm not real now that I look back on it, it's kind
Huh.
of how did that happen? How can you be bullied and how can you be popular at the same time?
My next question is connecting to you mentioned earlier cosplaying. How did that happen? Did that happen in high school as well, or after high school, somewhere along the way.
Oh, so I have been watching anime all my life or playing games all my life.
Hmm.
So I've always known that I've wanted to cosplay, but since we are in the Philippines where
Hmm.
stuff is so hard to get, and then further on we're in Baguio, which makes materials and stuff harder to get. So when I was in high school, I didn't cosplay.
Hmm.
And when I got to college, I met this bunch of friends. We were all, as we would call geeks or otakus, like that.
Hmm.
And they were cosplaying. I mean, I was. We were freshmen, and the guys we were hanging out with were older, and
Hmm.
they were cosplaying. So of course we got into the cosplay community because they introduced us where to get materials or um, connections, stuff
Hmm.
like that.
It's interesting. It's interesting. And if I may add into get off of topic and ask you, during your life, I mean, during the span of things that you've achieved over the past few days, a few years, uh, who is your greatest motivator and why?
Greatest motivator. I think that would be my mom.
Hmm.
I've always wanted to impress her or like um I just love my mom so much. So everything I do, I want it to be good so that people would see that my mom is a good person or somebody who raised someone who is good.
Hmm. Coming back to that saying that just hit me. When was the transition of you mentioned earlier? When did you transition from the tomboy to sing to the girly girl thing? That just really hit me out of the blue. I gotta ask.
Yeah. When I was in freshman college, I was still a bit tomboy.
Hmm.
And then I got into cosplay
Hmm.
because when I was in high school and then starting off college, I didn't really know where to get girly stuff or I couldn't afford them.
Oh.
So when I started off at college and I
Huh.
was able to earn a bit of money from the side, I
Hmm.
was able to buy those things and I transitioned to being girly. So that was like second year of college.
Huh. Interesting. I didn't expect that. And
Yeah. Plus, because in high school, all
hmm,
my friends were boys. All of them were
makes sense.
boys. In college, I also had boyfriends, but I started gaining girlfriends as well. That's why they helped me transition to being the girly girl that I am.
Interesting. I gotta ask, are you on the three categories of personality: ambivert, introvert, or extrovert? From high school till today. I assume you're in my impression when you and I met. I've always assumed that you're an extroverted. You know how to do things. You know how to sing. So I gotta ask: are you introvert, ambivert, or an what's the other one? Yeah, the other one.
Yeah, and yeah. When I was young, I always did think that I am an extrovert,
Hmm.
but right now I really think I'm an introvert because I
Hmm.
totally hate meeting new people or talking and stuff like that. But it is something that I'm actually good at.
Hmm.
So whenever I get that chance to like meet somebody or talk to someone or do an interview,
Hmm.
I always have to prep
Hmm.
because it gives me like anxiety na, oh my gosh, somebody will be talking to me or oh my gosh, I'll be meeting someone new. I don't know what I'll do. Something like that. So
Okay.
before everything, I always try to prep myself because I do think I'm an introvert.
So far, me knowing you and me asking you this favor, I gotta ask: were you having anxiety attack the first time I asked you?
Well, I was like, oh my god, he's going to interview me. What should I say? That's why I was asking you, what is this about? What
Yeah.
is the topic so that I could prepare some
Uh,
material in my mind on what you might ask me or
yeah.
what I might be able to say on your show.
Uh, but then, yeah, you you're kind of getting the hang of it. It's just a casual conversation.
Yeah.
Basically, that's the main gist of the whole Let's Talk series: is getting to know people on a human level. Hence,
Yeah.
the it's more less structured and stuff like that. And I gotta ask, when it comes to cosplay, I'm sure you have this favorite character. Who is that number one character that got you into cosplay? For me, I'm rare in the anime stuff. I really need to catch up. I think the last one that I've been catching up is the Yu Yu Hakusho thing, the old ones. So
Yeah.
I'm still out of date with the new ones. So yeah, I gotta ask you, who's that character that stood out and said, "Hey, I want to be a character like that." When it came to cosplay.
When I was a kid, um since I watched a lot of anime,
Hmm,
and she is also the first character I cosplayed.
hmm,
She's pretty simple, just a little girl and her outfit. She's just wearing t-shirt and shorts like
hmm,
that, so I just copied her. And the character's name is Chihiro from Spirited Away, made by Studio Ghibli.
hmm,
And Spirited Away is, I mean, Studio Ghibli is pretty popular now, especially with Totoro.
hmm,
And but when I was already in like elementary and stuff, I was already watching Studio Ghibli films, and I kept telling everybody that it
hmm,
was an awesome show and how I loved it and all of that. And it kind of weirds me out that Studio Ghibli only became totally popular now.
hmm.
So people know the characters now, but when I was saying it before,
Uh,
they didn't know her. So I cosplay her because if you watch the
hmm,
film is very fantasy based,
hmm.
and she just goes through with her life as a kid trying to save her parents from what happened in the film.
Okay.
And I just like her. I just like her because she was very genuine, and she gave me that feeling of, even if you are a kid, you are able to do so much more than you can.
Hmm. Interesting. That's a very interesting, inspiring quote. Speaking of inspiring quotes, do you have a motivation, a philosophy that you wake up to, or when you get to work, when you do your thing, either way, cosplay, or you get to a job or do anything that you do? Do you have a particular quote, a philosophy that you live by?
I do actually. Recently I did make this quote, and my quote is, it's all right to complain
Hmm.
as long as you still do it.
That sounds familiar. I
Yeah,
think I've heard that before.
because I always complain a lot, but I still do the job.
Hmm.
It's something for me. I mean, if you're gonna do it anyway, it's fine that you complain as long as you do it perfect or right.
Interesting, interesting. And well, that's interesting. I mean, that in itself, it's but I've seen you work. I think you and I worked before with some couple of projects, and I'm sure you remember. We had the Baguio Needs a
Yeah,
Hero. I think uh 2019, we executed that, and it was
yeah, yeah.
fun. I mean, I was scared of you. The first time,
That's a great example of what I was saying. Like, I was
hmm,
complaining that, what? They just gave me how many weeks to do this, and
yeah,
it has to have this many
hmm,
output, but
yeah,
then I did it. So
yeah.
it's fine to complain as long as you do it.
The fun part of that was getting to watch your face react to almost everything that is thing, and then still you had that
Yeah.
stoic kind of. I don't know. It was like uh, an impression of Joker meets Bruce Wayne, kind of stoic on one end, and then you know Joker on one side.
Yeah.
It's kind of that dynamic working with you, but it was actually fun. And that's one thing that I really enjoyed with working with you because you have that work ethic, professionalism, and that's why I really respect you a lot. Hence, this opportunity to talk to you and feature you on my podcast because you are one inspiring person, I gotta say. And
Mm,
to to the times that we've spent, we've worked professionally. Yeah, I've always seen you as a person who has this ability of doing things that you do and get things done basically. And yeah, it's really phenomenal. And I'm glad you actually said yes to this conversation because to me it's a huge honor having you.
Rajiv, you're making me blush.
Well, no, but I'm being genuine because for all these years that I know I've always tried to have a conversation with you, it was always hard. It was like up to some point,
Yeah.
uh, up to some point it was gonna be like am I gonna book an appointment just to have a conversation with you? And very hard.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Like I said, when I was young, I was extroverted. Now I want things on a schedule so that. Uh,
It's funny. I mean, I'm not complaining now. I mean, the fact that you're doing what you do, I'm actually proud of what you're doing, and especially for those who don't know, Shireen is actually a TikTok. Do you call it TikTok artist? I don't know what the characters are nowadays for people who use TikTok.
yeah, well, from those who do TikTok, I think they
Yeah,
call it a TikToker in
TikToker. Yeah,
in Tagalog. It's a TikToker.
I
Yeah,
think
TikTok artist, TikTok influencer, stuff like that.
I just added that royalty finesse to make it more interesting.
Yeah,
TikTok.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Shireen is pretty good in what she does. When I say she does well, cosplay, she dominates, and she brings her A game. That's one thing. I forgot to ask in this conversation when being in school or wherever you do your thing. Do you have that competitive edge? Like you've mentioned sports. Do you have that competitive edge, like the Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality, or Michael Jordan killer mentality when it comes to sports or even working? I mean, are you competitive in that thing, aside from being, of course,
Yes.
introverted? And to follow up with that is what goes through your mind when you go through when you go through that period? Is it that you look at someone dead in the eye, or visualize them dead in the eye, and then I'm gonna dominate this guy? Are you that kind of person when it comes to competitive, especially trying to shoot someone with an arrow, which is kind of scary to think about it? I don't want to mess with you with that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, in school, I'm a pretty shy girl, but people always tend to tell me that, hey, I can't believe you weren't Dean's Lister, because usually if it comes to like talking in front, or what do you call that? I forgot what they call
Public
that. When
speaking
you
kind of thing.
present in front,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that.
Hmm.
And when I answer the teacher's questions,
Hmm.
people are usually, "Oh wow, she's so good," something like that,
Hmm.
because I am. I'm pretty comfortable speaking in front or giving out my uh what do you call this? When the teacher gives you a topic and you speak in front about that topic.
Hmm.
I've always done that, so I've always been confident with that in school. And people usually call me when they need somebody for um, competitions in school as well.
Yeah.
And then out of school in cosplay, yes, I am pretty competitive. Although it took me a few years to get here because of course I wanted to learn from the best of the best,
Hmm.
which is I am in this group of girls who are very highly known in Baguio cosplay community.
Hmm.
And they are the best of the best, like best in crafting, best in wig making, makeup, stuff like that. And they have taught me the rope arounds to doing stuff, and I have learned a lot from them. That's why I was able to get here with their help. And as for work, yes, actually I do think I am pretty competitive all around because I want stuff to be perfect, or I try my best to go beyond what is expected of me. So, like when I went to this work I have now,
Hmm.
they gave me the job, and I always try my best to do more than what I can for the job. That's why they did afterwards put me as a manager
Wow.
for yeah, even when I was
Starting out. and stuff
when
like-
I applied, yeah, even when I was starting out with their company.
Pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool. Not bad. Not bad. It's pretty cool. You are a beast to never want to mess around with. This one thing. Fascinating. And learning a lot about you is interesting. I mean, I've always wanted to have this conversation, as mentioned earlier. So I don't want to mess with you, especially in archery, because that's one thing that I feared of. I never expected you to do archery. I've seen a lot of your cosplay, but I thought that's for show. But when you mentioned saying archery, it's like now I'm a bit scared. You know, I'm a bit scared to look out the window. I might get shot in the arrow from here. So,
Yes. I'm also a very sporty person, so when my friends took up archery, I took up archery as well. And we also went to compete here in Baguio, La Union, Manila, National, and I did get a few gold and silver medals for it.
Wow, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Anyway, before we continue our conversation, of course, we're just gonna have a little bit of short break, and then folks will be back after these few short messages.
Mainit na diskusyonan,
Masarap na kwentuhan
malinamnam na usapan,
at nakakagising na balitaktakan.
parang kape lang. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Weya Angeline
Join us in our conversations at Coffee na Lang Dear Podcast.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the Rajiv Show, and I'm here with Chairein, a phenomenal cosplayer, archer. The only thing that's always in my head is that archer thing. I'm literally scared. Phenomenal. Yeah, I can't add anything after archer is funny. But anyway, welcome back to the episode. And earlier on, the first half of this episode, we were talking about motivation and the stories of Chairein, and of course, inspirational stuff. One thing I didn't ask in the beginning, by the way, is that why is your English so impeccable? Believe me, I've always wanted to ask. Is it movies? Because for me personally,
Oh no.
a background on how I improve my English is definitely not in school. I'm a huge when I was young, growing up here in the Philippines, and when I transitioned to India, is that I've always been I'm fascinated with the Western movies. And it's
Mhm.
it's always something that I've always sing. Especially, it started, of course, when I was young. I used to watch Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry. Back then, there was no English, but then when it transitioned into movies, when realistic stuff started changing, I started picking up a thing or two from each movie, and it's funny. That's how I built my whole life on banking on learning how to express myself, especially when I went to India. The language was much more different. Although it was English, it was much
Mhm.
more different in terms of pronunciation, and certain
Yeah.
words are actually modified, and that's how I kind of picked up English. I gotta ask, how did you get the English thing? Is it also the same thing? I'm sure anime didn't have English.
Oh,
They're all
yeah.
Japanese. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not anime. Anime just has English subtitles.
Yeah, that's true.
But when this is something that you will see fairly common in
Huh.
Igorot communities.
Huh.
Igorot people usually are really good in English. When I was young,
Huh.
um, if we had family gatherings,
Hmm.
you weren't allowed to talk in Tagalog.
Really?
You were allowed to only talk in Ilocano or in English. Yeah,
Yeah.
for real. So we only spoke English or Ilocano.
Hmm.
So when I was young, I didn't talk in Tagalog,
Hmm.
and I just learned it when I started going to elementary. I just learned my Tagalog then, but my main language was English, also because my mom is an English teacher,
Ooh.
and every time you pronounce something wrong or
Yeah.
said it in the wrong tense,
Hmm.
she would catch you and she would
Really?
lecture you on why you said it wrong and how you're supposed to say it. That's
Uh,
how I grew up. That's why I do have this normal English accent thing.
yeah. It's only confusing probably when you go to New York, or you pick up that
Yeah.
as transitioning this into the Brooklyn, Boston, Italian kind of thing. What you got to do about it, eh?
Mhm.
It'll be interesting. I kind of
Yeah.
visualize
Yeah.
you doing that with that nice soft voice, but you still
Yeah.
have that Italian thing that you can actually knock that off. And what will be
If you
interesting?
watch a lot of Italian or British
Yeah.
movies, you'd
Hmm.
have that accent
Yeah.
after the movie.
That's funny. I actually have a story to share there, but before I get into that story, is that um, uh, visualizing you speaking in that Boston accent is always, it's not really a fantasy of mine. It's kind of, I'm a creative guy. I make things up in my head and sing, and I kind of visualize having this conversation with you, imagining you with the Boston accent and you with the cosplay, probably with that Boston, um, was that Boston 60s, 70s
Character.
look, with the
Yeah.
corsets and stuff like that, you can knock that off of the park, that would be
That does.
interesting.
I can visualize that too.
But yeah, you'll be in the cosplay, and then you, of course, in cosplay is the main challenge for some people uh, in the cosplay community is, of course, when you're in cosplay, you have to be in character, especially when you're competing. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you agree with me. Is because I've been
Yes.
to some of the conventions. You guys maintain character even if you're not on stage, especially when you're not on stage, you're still in character.
Yes.
I'm often wondering, wow, this
Yeah.
is my first experience there was saying,
It's dedication.
yeah, the craftsman, and it's pretty interesting. It's interesting visualizing you probably by the next time, once this pandemic is done, probably you'd come up with a character, that would be the Boston of Bostons, and then you'll be like, hey, what you gonna do about it with the corset and the and the barrettes and the umbrella inside? It's gonna be interesting. Visualizing it itself is kind of is gonna be a shocking thing, and how you're gonna create that is yeah. Coming back to what I mentioned earlier is, yo, yeah, there's truth to what you said about watching movies and then you get influenced by saying the language. uh,
Yeah.
there's a story that I haven't shared in my episode specifically, is that there was a lot of times where aside from American movies, of course, in India, I used to there was the transition between I'm sure we had that video one thing here where we used to rent out CDs for movies or whatever latest release they had, those uh,
Yes. Yeah.
video one, you know. uh, when I was in India, where we had this DVD player, and then we used to rent a lot of sing movies. And there was a time when I had the opportunity to when everybody at home is too lazy to go to the video store. We used to go as a family. It was kind of strange. We used to go to the as a family to the video store, and then once we come back, of course, we pick up a movie, and then it so happens that we just go to the video store and pick up one movie. It's kind of strange looking back at it. But yeah, when I used to go on my own, and I figured out a way. I used to, rent James Bond movies. And every single movie that I watch, the series, I used to watch the series from Dr. No. It's so funny that subconsciously, when I go to school the next, I'd be like, not just in terms of the English that I speak, it's somehow the way I dress, because we had the suit and everything, you know,
Oh, yeah.
we had the suit and tie on Mondays and then the regular uniform. And we had a nice blazer, Every time I had no idea why subconsciously I keep buttoning even when I'm not even going anywhere, I'm buttoning as I sit down. I'm buttoning when I'm standing up. It's kind of weird. I'm buttoning when I'm walking. It's kind of weird. The mannerisms of James Bond kind of overlapped, and and it went straight into my head. It's kind of funny.
Did you also go, I'm Rajiv? Rajiv Doris Plumbing.
Strange enough, not that, but uh, from time to time, the James Bond in me will come from nowhere. Suddenly I'll be speaking,
Yeah.
and then the British accent will come out. What I mean. Wait,
Yeah.
where did that come from? In the back of my head, that's the reaction of my brain. It's kind of funny. uh, and is and sometimes it's really hard to get out of it, especially when saying, and then
Especially
uh
when you're in it. Yeah.
yeah, and then one more thing was the Boston accent. The reason why I thought of you as a Boston accent is I was thinking of the Italian movie The Godfather. I'm a huge Godfather fan, you know. Any Godfather related subject, we'd be here for hours, days. Because I have the book. Just so you know, I have the full collection of the book. I'm a Mario Puzo fan ever since I scored my hands on
Wow. Yeah.
the book. And then I've seen the movie five more than 10 times, I think. And it's actually some every time I watch it, there's something that you can peel in the layers. But anyway, I've deviated from the conversation. The accent is kind of what I imagined you with the Italian Brooklyn accent. That is what I thought of and imagined you in that kind of situation. Would be like, that's an interesting way to put Chairein in that aspect. It'd be interesting to see how that outcome will be.
Yeah,
That'd
but you
be,
got it right. I love their aesthetic in that movie. It's
yeah.
something I for sure would do.
Something about it. I mean, and back then, I mean, looking at now we're gonna deviate into movies and art, because I'm sure this is connected to cosplay, which we'll talk about in a few more minutes. Is that when you are really getting into the aesthetics and all that stuff, you gotta do your due diligence. And I'm sure, I don't know if what's your definition for an amateur cosplayer, a guy that doesn't do due diligence and then gets into the space without knowing the characters. Have you encountered some of that, especially in when you were with the community?
Amateur cosplayers?
Yeah, like, I mean, my idea of what I see as an amateur, I have never encountered this before though, is that someone who comes in with this character that he doesn't know of, and then goes into the community,
Ah,
and then doesn't know how to play the part. Plays another part, which is kind of weird.
yeah.
I've never encountered that, but have you encountered that? I mean, with your years.
Yeah, that is very common here in
Hmm.
our cosplay community. Is well, actually, when you cosplay and let's say your costume's not accurate, your makeup's not accurate,
Hmm.
your character is not accurate, you're not in it. You can't really say it's an amateur cosplay.
Then.
Sometimes people just do it for fun,
Ah.
so you can't say it's an amateur cosplay. But there is a difference between a cosplayer who does it for fun
Hmm.
and somebody who cosplays to gain fame.
Hmm.
That's our problem with the community right now.
Hmm.
Is sometimes new people will come into the community
Hmm.
and they would pick siguro a sexy character
Hmm.
or like um a heavy character just so that they can gain fame, and they won't even try to know the character's name
Hmm.
or know what the character does
Hmm.
or the story of the character.
Hmm.
That I think is something that we can classify as
Amateur.
amateur
Ah. Okay.
cosplayer, or people
Hmm.
who don't really cosplay but they're just here because they think they would get fame out of it.
Hmm. Well, interesting. That's an interesting. It's an interesting insight to cosplay. It really, it's not more than I think, as you mentioned, the it's more than just the makeup and the aesthetics. I think it's, do you agree with me in the terms that you have to do your due diligence when it comes to singing,
Yes, yes,
and
yes. At least
research
go to the,
researches.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. That's the basic thing that you do. That's like the lowest thing that you can do.
Hmm.
Once you've done the research and
Hmm.
you at least know your character's name and what the character does,
Hmm.
then you're already a cosplayer. It doesn't matter if you're that good or
Hmm.
if it's not that accurate or whatever. You're
Hmm.
already a cosplayer as long as you did the basic that you have
Hmm.
to do. Because if you don't do that, people will just really see you as somebody who's cosplaying for fame or attention.
Uh, some certain things you really
That-
can't get
That's
out
what
of.
we call the
Hmm.
bare minimum.
Mm. Some certain things you really can't get off of normal habits, probably. I think, yeah, nowadays, yeah, I do agree that some people use social media for the wrong reasons. But yeah, as social media in terms of cosplay, that, yeah, you have a good point there. It's interesting. Interesting stuff. And
Especially now, a
mm,
lot of people are coming into the community because it's something new for them, but
mm,
they don't know about it. They don't want to know about it. They just really do it for the fame, or because a lot of people think that cosplayers are all famous.
mm,
So they want to start cosplaying because they think they'll be famous, but they don't know
mm,
that just like normal artists,
mm.
we are all having a hard time getting into the community or getting known, stuff like that. And when they find out that they won't get famous, they just get disappointed and they quit basically.
Interesting. That you've opened up an interesting conversation and an insight to cosplay in an interesting way. Anyway, I gotta ask, was there a pivotal moment in your life where you you've decided, uh, this moment, I want to change and I want to be different. I want to inspire and sing. And where it led you to where you are now. Is there that pivotal moment? Do you have that story? Could you paint us a picture by any chance?
Yes. Yes, well, I don't have this one story.
Hmm.
It's more of a stitched together bundle of stories. So when I started cosplaying, and I saw the people at the top, and I said, "Wow, they're awesome! Wow, they're able to do this! Wow!" For example, my friend Clark, wow, she was able to go to other countries to compete for cosplay, stuff like that, and I wanted to do that. So I learned, I climbed myself up to the top, and I wanted to do what they were doing, where they were changing lives, and once I got there, I wanted to do the same. What they did was they helped me, so I wanted to help other people as well. So a lot of cosplayers that I hold, I mean, if I have something, I'd call them out for. Like for example, when we're busking, I'd call them out. I would. I've been doing a lot of gigs now. I've been doing them for big companies like Cytel, Smart, Globe, TNT, PLDT, TikTok, and a lot of small companies as well. And they always call me, and as much as I can, I want to bring my friends along. I want to, especially this pandemic, we had this Mobile Legends gig, and they called me, and they were paying big money, and I wanted to call my friends, especially it was pandemic, and I know that they were having a hard time coming by. So I made sure that they'd also get some of that money, and that they would also be able to be exposed like I am, stuff like that. So it's and I have also been doing like volunteer work. So if we have extra funds, so if we do a gig, we try to, each person has to give like a small amount to our group, which we use to do volunteer activities, like if we want to reach out to people, give stuff like that. It's just something that we want to show the people that even if we are not famous, or even if it's just a small gesture, that we are here and we want to help you with our passion, our hobbies, our cosplay. Plus, when you do events, you're actually already changing people's lives. It's people know us for our events and the memories they make on those events, the things they win from the events, the friends they make from the events. Event making is something that I think is also a big influencer, or it changes people's lives, because as small as one event, it gives people a connection. It gives people friends that they connect with at an event, or it gives them that feeling of, hey, you're not alone. We have the same passion, and we should do this together. Just because an event changes lives, even though it's just small, even though it's just one event, you make those memories, you make those connections, those friendships, and it will change your life, just like how it changed mine, because mine started in an event as well. And that's how I got here, with one event.
I would like to shout out to Tanabata. I think you were also one of the host or one of the members. And
Organizers.
yeah, and my first experience with Tanabata, I mean, that was a phenomenal experience. I know I felt bad that I was late in the thing, and I only learned about Tanabata only few days after it was saying released. But nonetheless, I kind of really enjoyed the experience of Tanabata, and especially how you guys sing. And I heard that was the last. I felt bad that I showed up in the last of your events. But shout out to the host, whoever the host is, and also your fellow comrades who you've worked with in Tanabata. I mean, I'm proud of you guys, and more power to you guys. Hopefully, if you guys plan to do more events with, uh, that'll be interesting. Shout out to you guys and salute to you guys. Anyway, we've covered a lot of amazing topics here. We've ranged uh, co- uh, from archery, which is the first thing that always comes to my mind when I think of you
Yeah.
now. And we've had an insightful conversation about cosplay and the life of cosplays. It's really interesting. I gotta say, you are a phenomenal person. From the beginning of this conversation, I have been blown away by the things that I've learned from you, and I hope my listeners as well. But before we go, of course, if my listeners are interested in connecting with you, they want to find you, how do they find you on social media?
Well, they can find me in social media. My Instagram is Chairein_mana. So that's the spelling of chair and then EIN_mana, MANA, just like the mana in game that you drink so that you can get magic.
Hmm.
And then my TikTok and my Facebook page is Hot Mama Cosplay. So my Facebook page is Hot Mama Cosplay and Crafts, and my TikTok account is Hot Mama Cosplay.
Awesome. Awesome. With that in mind, I want to thank my guest, Chairein Cordoviz. Phenomenal. Um, from the beginning of this conversation to the last, I might as well be. I want to be in character. Please don't shoot me with an arrow when we meet, because that's the only image that I can think of right now. And throughout the entire conversation, I'm always looking out my window from now on for a flying arrow from Baguio to La Trinidad. And for those who are
La
tuned in,
Trinidad.
I hope you learned a lot. I mean, this is an amazing conversation. I want to say thank you again to Chairein Cordoviz for coming to the Rajiv show.
Thank you, Rajiv, for having me on your show. It's been phenomenal, and I very much appreciate you and your show for filling out filling us out on these people that are very inspirational and giving us something to look forward to with your wonderful guests and your wonderful podcast. I wish all the best for your podcast and your show, and may it grow more and more.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And for those who are tuning in, again, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I will see you folks in the next episode. Cheers.